Okay, so you want to add a second monitor to a desktop PC. It's a very common thing for people to want, and on the surface, it sounds very simple, right? You just get the second monitor, just plug it in, boom, you're done. Well, it's not always quite so simple. There's a little bit of fiddliness with this that you have to be prepared for, maybe parts and pieces that you might need, or at least need to understand to make this work properly. So we're going to go over, this is not going to be a video showing you a person setting up two monitors. Rather, we're going to cover, this is like the prerequisites. You're preparing to do that. Maybe you've already picked up the second monitor and you're like, okay, now what? You look at the back of the computer and there's all these ports and places to plug stuff in and different colors and all that, and it's confusing. And you're not wrong. It is confusing. So we're going to try and demystify some of that and make this process make a little more sense and kind of get you prepared for setting up dual monitor on a desktop PC. So let's dig in here. What are the considerations to get the second monitor set up? First of all, can your PC even handle dual monitors? Now, this used to be a much more relevant question. And that means for older PCs, you could not take for granted that it's going to support dual monitor. Nowadays, any computer, really most computers that have been made in the last 10 years, have this capability, whether they sell that as a feature when you buy it or not. They've got the capability to do it. So generally speaking, if you're using something that's not too ancient, you're going to have the capability to do this. There's always a chance that your computer can't handle it. But I would say that the odds are in your favor. Your computer can do dual monitor when it's hooked up properly. Okay, so what do you need? Well, of course, you need a desktop PC. There is a way to add second monitors to an all-in-one PC or to a laptop, but we're not going to cover that here because honestly, that's actually quite a bit easier if it's even possible on your machine. Desktop gets more complicated, so we're focusing on that, and we're focusing on Windows desktop. You also need monitors, of course. Now, do they have to be matching monitors in size, in brand, in specs? No, they do not. So if you bought your original monitor back when you bought the PC and now it's 3 or 4 years later and you're buying another monitor, you're probably not going to have a problem. It's just, it's really the same challenge whether you bought the monitors together or not. But to answer the question, do you have to have matching monitors? No, you do not. There are benefits to doing so, for sure. The color matching between the monitors, if they're different brands or made with, in different time periods, or one of them's had more screen burn time, it may be difficult to get them to look exactly the same. So if you're doing something high-end, like graphic design or, architectural drawings, or, anything related to graphics or video, and the color matching is important, it's worth it to go ahead and get a matching pair. But for most setups, in an office or at home, it's usually a difference that you can live with. And will it work? Yes, it will. Okay, then you're going to need cables to connect each of the monitors. Now, each monitor is going to have a power cable of some kind. That's obvious. That's going to come with the monitor, or it's going to be a standard one you could just pick up. But it's also going to have one or more video cables. And each monitor needs one video cable going to the computer. And finally, you may need video adapters. And that's going to make more sense once we start looking at specific examples here. But an adapter would be something that basically changes, it lets one type of cable connect to another type of port or cable. It changes the type of video signal or connector, or however you want to think about it. So You need to understand the connections on the PC, which we're going to cover here in this video. You need to understand the connections on the monitors. We're going to cover that as well. And you need to kind of have an awareness of what cables do you already have. Because if at the end of this you realize, oh, you know what, I need this, that, or the other. Well, video cables, generally speaking, they're one of the most overpriced things in the entire world of IT parts. It's ridiculous. So if you have cables that are in good shape, you should definitely want to use those. You don't want to buy these again. You don't want to go to a retail store for sure and have to buy one of these, because you'll be shocked. It's crazy how expensive they are. I don't know why it's that way. I think it's just that the retailers can get away with it, so they do. So make sure you know what cables you already have, because that could really save you a lot of headache and a lot of money. And then at the end of this, you're gonna hopefully be able to come to an understanding at the end of this video of what other cables or adapters that you need to make this work. And as far as where to get those, again, if you go to a local retailer, you're going to pay through the teeth for them. If you go to an online retailer like Amazon, for example, maybe Newegg, it can be challenging to make sure you're getting the right thing, but the prices are going to be better there. Also, if you have a local IT person in town that you trust, you could get them involved with this process of getting you the right cables. Hopefully they're not going to be overcharging you, and also they'll be able to help you with selecting the right things. Okay, so let's take a look at the back of the PC. Now, since you're watching this video, it's probably not going to be easy for you to do this right now, but when you look at the back of a PC, this is generally the kind of thing that you're going to see. Some of the connectors that are available on the back of a PC are going to be obvious because of their shape or maybe their color, and some of them are not going to be so obvious. And you're going to find that there's variety. Like, your PC probably doesn't look exactly like any one of these examples. But generally, there is some consistency into how things are laid out. So what we are looking for are video connectors, like so. And here's the video connectors on this one. And here are the video connectors on this one. And really, as far as how do you come to identify these, well, we're going to cover that in this video, but it's really something that you need to be able to identify them. You're going to need to identify what makes these unique. Now, there's an important thing here, and that is your PC, any PC, may have video connectors that are oriented like this, like they're over here with the other types of connectors, right? They're all grouped with them in that block. Same thing here. You see, there's the audio connectors, there's the USBs, there's the Ethernet, and the videos are right here. And they're all of this, basically of the same orientation like that. It's like this whole thing is a block, right? Well, what that is the user-facing end of what's called your motherboard. That's the main system, main circuit board that's inside the computer. So these types of video ports that are on that are called onboard video ports. That's a pretty accepted standard terminology for that. This is onboard video. Now, why is the distinction necessary? Well, because some PCs will have what's called a discrete video card. Discrete as in D-I-S-C-R-E-T-E, as in kind of, I guess it kind of means like standalone or separate from, distinct almost, And if you have a discrete video card, that's going to be in one of these slots. These are called expansion slots. Now, unfortunately, on the photos that I have here, all of these slots are empty, like there's nothing in them. But this is where a video card would be. And you'll know it's a video card because it's going to have ports that look just like this. Some combination, usually a minimum of 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 video ports. And that's really all that's going to be on those generally. It's a dedicated video card. And this is true even on computers that are different shapes. If you have like a smaller form factor computer, it is going to still, it's the same type of configuration, right? You've got a block here. This is the motherboard. This is the onboard stuff. Here's our video ports. And here's the expansion cards. And these are what are called low profile expansion cards, but still, you can have a video card that fits in there. And if it's got too many video connectors to fit in a low profile slot, then sometimes it will take up 2 slots. And some of the video connectors will be here, and some will be down here. Again, another example here. This is the motherboard. This is the onboard video. And here's another one sneaking in there. See that? HDMI. So those are the video options on the motherboard. And this is where a discrete video card would be installed if it's on the computer. Now, here's why that's important. If a discrete video card is installed, then that is what, pretty much without exception, that's what you must use. If there is a discrete video card here in your computer, you can't use these. That's confusing sometimes to a lot of people. They'll think, well, I've got this type of cable, so I'll plug it in up here, and then I've got a different type of cable, and I'll plug it in down here. But the vast, vast majority of the time, that is not going to work. You have to use the discrete video card connectors only if there is a discrete video card. And if there's not, then you, of course, can only use the onboard. But you can't use them both together. That will not work, ever. I say ever. And, somebody's going to comment, I know, on the video, well, I made it work. I did this. Yeah, okay. It is possible. But as a general rule, you will agree, my friends, that this is not going to work very well. You must use, just go ahead and say it, you must use the discrete video card if it exists. The reason is that almost all motherboards, when they detect a discrete video card is installed, they'll disable these ports anyway. They just won't work. And if they do, well, that means that that's not a very sophisticated BIOS on the motherboard, and it could lead to some problems and confusion and just general trouble. So don't do it. If you've got a discrete video card, those are the video ports you want to be looking at. And if you've got onboard, then that's what you'll be using. But either way, they're all going to have the same types of choices of video ports. Hey, I wanted to quickly let you know about Computers 101. It's a self-paced online course we have designed for people who say, I'm not very good with computers. Computers 101 is a series of easy-to-understand lessons put together specifically for non-computer people of all ages to help make your computer more useful for the things you want to get done. If you like the learning style of this video, check out Computers 101 by visiting the link in the description. It could be a great solution for you or for someone you know. So, there are several different types of ports that you might see on the back of your computer. The first one, the oldest type that's still in use today, is VGA. And the distinctive mark of that is it's pretty much going to be blue in some way. Sometimes the cable itself is black, but the connector will be blue. If it doesn't have the blue color, the other way to distinguish it is there are 15 little pinholes here. So on the male side, it's 15 pins, and on this side, it's 15 pinholes, 555. That's VGA. The second type that's a little bit newer technology than VGA is DVI, and again, it's really easy to identify. I have never in my life seen a DVI cable that isn't bright white like this. And they're larger. Like it's kind of bulkier and larger than a VGA cable. And it's got a whole bunch more pins in there. Now, I can't give you a specific number of pins here because it varies. There's at least 3 different types of DVI, and they have different pin configurations. So you kind of just have to identify them visually. Hopefully you don't have DVI to mess with, but if you do, this is what DVI looks like. Now, this is the most common one, and it's called HDMI. And if you've ever hooked up your TV to your cable box or hooked up an Xbox to a cable box or things like that, generally speaking, you're going to have seen this type of cable. And it's HDMI. And it's shaped kind of like a smile. Kind of. You know, it's got like bent ends there on just one side of the face. It's got these 2 bent ends. And that's generally what HDMI looks like. HDMI is a good quality cable. And the other would be the newest kid on the block, which isn't exactly brand spanking new. It's been around a while. And it's very easy to confuse with HDMI. But this is called DisplayPort. And DisplayPort, this connector it's a slightly different shape than HDMI. So HDMI is kind of like, I'm a terrible drawer. It's kind of like this, okay, with the 2 bent ends. And DisplayPort is almost a rectangle, except for one end has an angle there. So you can kind of see it in this picture, I think, and in this connector here. That's DisplayPort. That's also a very good quality cable. But your concern right now is just identifying what these are, because these are going to be what are on your discrete video card ports or on the onboard video ports. And there is no standard there, by the way. Like, I mean, every possible combo of these is out there. So you might have a computer that has VGA and HDMI, or you might want to has VGA and DVI and HDMI, or it might have 2 HDMI ports and 1 display port. There's all kinds of combos you'll find. So it's important to understand what these look like and how to identify them, because you're going to need to, figure out what they are. Now, these same ports are also on the monitor. They're almost always on the back side like this. You'll have a black power cord generally of some kind that's plugging in, and then you're going to have usually more than one type of video connector back here. Now, bonus points to anybody who can say what this one is without seeing the end of it. Hint, it's blue. So we know this monitor has a VGA connection option, and then we would have to tilt the monitor forward to see what this other one is. I would guess that it's going to be DVI, but it could be another VGA. That would be unusual. It might be HDMI. You just don't know. So in order to know what your setup has, you want to look at this information for both of your monitors, even the one that's already hooked up. Because when you're hooking up a second monitor and you've got to match up the available video ports on your monitors with those on your computer, you may have to get a little creative. You may have to change which type of video cable you're using on your first monitor in order to make room for the second one. So go ahead when you're kind of taking inventory of the connections on your desktop as well as on your monitors. Go ahead and, you know what a good way to document these with is just take a picture with your phone rather than writing it down. Pictures with the phone are very helpful. And then if you're going to an IT professional or something to help you solve this connectivity problem, those photos are going to be super helpful. If they know what they're doing, that's the first thing they're going to ask for is what connectors are on each of these things. So go ahead and gather that information. And that really is the main part of this problem. Now, if you've got a mismatch between the types of connectors on your computer and the types available on your monitors, that's where adapters can come in to save the day. And a good place to look for these online is Amazon. There's all kinds of companies that we've never heard of that are making these things, And generally speaking, they're good quality products. So this is an example here of one that is, if you wanted to, let's say you've got an HDMI cable coming from your monitor. See that? It's HDMI, has the two angles. But your computer has a DisplayPort connection. So you would connect this monitor, you've got your monitor. Does that look like a monitor? Yeah, it kind of does. Your monitor has HDMI, it plugs into here, and then this plugs into the PC, I guess. Oh, that's just horrible. Horrible. Here you go, power button. Right? So this goes into the back of your PC. So that's one type of adapter that's available. And to search for these, you search for DisplayPort to HDMI adapter or HDMI to DisplayPort adapter. And that's how you'll find those if you're searching for them online. So maybe same scenario here. This one's HDMI and VGA. So maybe you've got a VGA cable coming out of your computer or out of your monitor, and it needs to plug into an HDMI port on the computer. Then this is the adapter that you'd want for that. And here's another example. When you're dealing with converting between DVI, which is what this is, remember the big white one, and VGA, this one's DVI right here, this one's VGA, then sometimes the adapter is just like one piece that you can basically just kind of screw into place. On other types of adapters, they're actually a short cable here. One thing that I would mention, you're going to find out there sometimes a long cable that might have DisplayPort on one end and HDMI on the other end, for example. I've found that those are generally, they end up being less reliable, or DOA when you buy them, they end up coming and they just don't work. I don't know precisely why that is, but I suspect that there is actually some circuitry inside these things that's properly pinning out the conversion. That's what this brick on the end of it is for. Same thing in here. That's what's going on in here. To some degree, that's what's going on in here and in here. Is a proper pin out and conversion between these two types, because these are all made of a bunch of little wires, the pins, and the configuration of these is completely different. And so at some point those have to get converted over. And so what I'm finding in my experience is that these shorter but bulkier adapters, they seem to have that circuitry in there more reliably, whereas a cable that just looks like a cable with different ends on it, I don't know. I've heard people say that they have them, that they get them and they work, but in my experience, they're not working so good. So I would focus on, you get a proper cable of the length that you need, and then you get an adapter to do your conversion. So once you've got all that sorted out, what connectors are on what things, you've inventoried, do you have a discrete video card, and you determine which video connector types you have versus what's on your monitors, then basically your job is to figure out between the world of cables and the world of adapters what's needed to get these things hooked up together. That's what dual monitor really comes down to. And then of course avoiding, you want to use onboard video if that's all you've got, if you don't have anything down here in the discrete video. But if you do have discrete video down there, then that's what you want to use to connect things up. That's a very important thing to remember. So whatever video types are on your video card, and then whatever video types are on your monitors, you just need to get the right cables and possibly adapters to make those work. I wanted to let you know also that we've made this form which can help you gather the information that you need if you're preparing for dual monitor setup. So there will be a link to this in the description of this video, and it's a PDF that you can just you could print out, and it can be helpful gathering this info either just to kind of help yourself keep organized about it, or if you're going to be taking this info to your local IT pro and want to show them exactly what you got, this is a great way to gather that information for them. So there's a spot here at the top where you can mark what connections are available on your PC, whether or not it's onboard or discrete. There's a visual here for the different connector types that's handy as you're trying to identify them. Then there's spots here to include which connections are available on each of your monitors. And then you can inventory, in this section here, you can inventory what cables you might already have. You might even get a sense of, okay, how many of those do I need? If you're not sure how many you need, just leave that part blank. And then at the bottom here, you can make some notes about what adapters you might need to get things all connected together. So this form is going to be available in the description. There will be a link to it. It's a free download. And if that proves useful, then print that out and make use of it. So that is preparation for dual monitor. What we will cover next is showing an actual hookup once we've acquired all the parts that we determined we needed here. Then we will show one, maybe two different hookups of dual monitors. That'll be a really short video, just show you exactly how you hook them up. And then the third and final part of this will be inside Windows. What do you do now that you've got the two monitors? How do you get them oriented properly? So that is that.